Some more social tensions for us. Now we're going to talk about less controversial things than white supremacy, and that's science versus religion. The 1920s is going to see this conflict again between tradition and modernity against modern scientific theory and traditional religious practice. In this case, we're going to talk about religious fundamentalism. Now, fundamentalism is not unique to Christianity. What fundamentalism means is a literal reading of a sacred text. So this means when you hear the story of Jonah and the whale, Jonah is not some metaphor for how you need to follow God's will. Otherwise, you're going to be forced to do it anyways. A fundamentalist reading of that text means that Jonah was literally swallowed by a really big fish and spit up on the shore 3 days later. Now, fundamentalism has it's an interpretation of the text, and it clashes in the 1920s with the scientific theories of the day, particularly Darwin's theory of natural selection as a means of evolution, but other scientific theories as well. For example, Einstein in his theory of relativity is going to clash with fundamentalism too. But in this case, we're going to talk about Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection because there's some implications here. First of all, it requires deep time, millions of years for this process to work. A literal fundamental reading of the Christian Bible suggests that the world is about 6,000 years old. So that's just one example of how this conflict takes place. And in Tennessee passed a law in the 1920s that said it was illegal to teach evolution in schools, and given it a charitable reading, they were worried about their children. But they banned the teaching of science in a science class. And this guy, Scopes, who was a substitute teacher at the time, actually went in and deliberately broke the law, actually invited media in to watch him break the law because he wanted to test this, because he and others within that area saw that this was going to be a test case for science versus religion. Is referred to as the Scopes monkey trial. Why a monkey trial? Because one of the things that religious fundamentalists were worried about was the theory of evolution by natural selection suggests that humans evolved through the ape species, and that's why they called it the monkey trial. But anyways, the Scopes trial became this huge nationwide sensation. Everybody was looking at it. Journalists were covering it. In the end, Scopes loses, but William Jennings Bryan, who's the lawyer in the case, who was a fundamentalist, was called on the stand, and he got embarrassed because he couldn't answer some questions. And really what it does is highlight the divide between rural America, who is focusing on this Christian fundamentalism, and the more urbanized modern territories. And we can see that conflict that starts in the 1920s is just going to increase throughout the modern era. Another social reaction is Prohibition. We won't spend too much time on this, but this is the ban on alcohol passed by the 18th Amendment. It was intended to cure societal ills. In fact, this is a progressive idea, mostly middle-class white folk who were trying to help fix the problems of the inner city and urban areas where there's a lot of immigrants. They thought that the immigrants were drinking too much, and that was why they were poor. So if they could just get rid of alcohol, that would solve a lot of problems. It turns out that it was unenforceable. There's not enough police officers to enforce it. Most of the people that would have been enforcing it were also of that immigrant or poor class, so they wanted to drink too. It leads to a problem with gangsters. Not that causes gangs, because gangs had always been around. It just adds another revenue source. So this is where you get like Al Capone and Scarface and all that. So really, the wealthy people could get away with drinking. The middle-class people didn't drink anyways. That's why they're the ones that push for prohibition. And the poor population, they're the ones that are really going to be struggling, trying to break the law, trying to find a way to get a drink. In the beginning of the New Deal, Franklin Roosevelt's going to get this overturned with the 21st Amendment.